Hello friends, Mr. O'Connor here again with another story. In continuing to honor Women's History Month, we're going to read another story today, centralizing the life of a character who identifies as a woman or a girl. But in this case, the story follows somebody who's really alive, a real life person. In fact, one of my favorite singers, some of you may already know her. In fact, I'm sporting her on my shirt today, Dolly Parton. So I'm back in my library. I'm going to find her book, which is stacked on my shelves here. One of the tricks that I like to do in my library to keep things organized is to alphabetize my books. So that means I put them in order of the alphabet by the first letter in the title. So the title of the book that we're reading today is just the name of the real life person who we're reading about, Dolly Parton, which means the first letter is D. So if I go to my books and I start right up here at the A's and I follow them through the B's, the C's, and the D's, I can find her book right there. Alphabetizing your books is a great way to keep your library organized. So let's begin our story today. I'm going to get settled right over here in my comfy chair for you. I'll probably pick out a friend to read with again today. I'm going to read with my friend the porcupine. I'm going to set him up here right next to me. I just always feels a little bit better when there's a friend to read with. So today's story, we're going to do three things. 1, 2, 3. Yes, three things before we begin reading, just like yesterday. The first thing we're going to do is answer a question that will help us think about experiences in our lives that can connect to this story. The second thing we're going to do is talk about a word that's going to show up in this story that will help us better understand it. And the third thing we're going to do is talk about the genre of the story. Then we'll check in on the front cover and begin. So, first thing, question I'd like for you to think about is, where does music show up in your life? Where does music show up in your life? Take just 1 second to think about it. For me, music shows up in lots of ways. I pretty much have the radio on any time that I'm working and I'm not talking to somebody. I like to have music going on in the background. I like to sing along to songs that I know. I also like to play instruments. For me, piano is an instrument that I know how to play and a way that I like to spend my time. So how does music show up in your life? If you're able, take a second to pause this video and talk with somebody near you about how music shows up in your life. Great! Thinking about how music shows up in your life will help you better understand the characters in this book, particularly our main character, Miss Dolly Parton. The second thing we're going to talk about before we begin reading is a word in the story that will help us better understand it. That word is, I say, you say, talent. Let's snap that word out. Ready, set, snap. Talent. Let's wave it like a wizard. Talent. Let's robot it. Talent. Let's always count it. Ready, set, count. Talent. How many parts in that word? 2 parts. You got it. The word talent means when you're really good at something, when you have skill at something that you've practiced. The last thing we're going to talk about before we move to the front cover is the genre of this book, the type of book that it is. So this book is a non-fiction book, which means that the author wrote it to teach us something new and true. And the kind of nonfiction this book is a biography, which just means that they're teaching us something new and true about somebody's life, somebody who really lived. Dolly Parton is somebody who is real and who's still alive today. Let's move to the front cover. I always like to do noticings before I begin a book. So since Dolly Parton's a real person, a person whose music I'm very familiar with, I also know some things in my brain already about her. About her identities in this book, about her age identity, she's going to start as a kid and then become a grown-up as the book moves on. I know that her gender identity is a woman. I know that her race identity is white, and I know that her language identity is English. So having done those noticings, let's begin. Dolly Parton by Maria Isabel Sanchez Pagar and illustrated by Daria Solak. Little Dolly grew up in the foothills of Tennessee's Great Smoky Mountains with her 11 siblings. She didn't have much, but she was gifted with a lovely voice, and that was worth more than any treasure. The author told us some information about her family identity, that she has lots of brothers and sisters, and her class identity, that her family doesn't have access to a lot of money. Dolly began to write songs on her guitar and perform them for whoever would listen. Singing barefoot on the front porch, Dolly dreamed of jumping on stage in high heels. I can tell that music's really important to her. Her Uncle Bill was amazed by her talent and helped her to get started in the music business. Dolly was only 10 years old when she got a regular slot singing for a radio station, feeding it in alongside school. When Dolly graduated from school, she moved to Nashville, the city of music. That's a place lots of people go if they want to have a career in singing. With her soulful voice and her songwriting talent, she was ready to become a star. But music was still her greatest love. So when Porter Wagner, a famous country entertainer, asked Dolly to sing with him, she didn't have to think twice. Dolly topped the charts with Porter, but she also wrote many moving songs on the trials of being a woman and earned herself loyal fans. It was time for her to go solo. That means sing alone. And when the author says that she wrote songs on the trials of being a woman, I think the author's talking about how she wrote about how it made her feel that about the untrue story that's told that boys and men are better than women and girls because of their gender. Those songs are about how that untrue story makes her feel and how it changes her life and what she and other women do to stop that untrue story. And it seems like telling songs about those stories made a lot of people understand her music, and it made them feel a certain way that made them interested in her music. She became the most popular singer in the country music scene, but she dreamed of making as many people happy as she could. So she started to look for new adventures. That's interesting. The author has told us many times how important music is to Dolly, but now we know that changing the world, making people happy, is also a part of her dream. That seems important. Dolly crossed over into pop music and sang with the most amazing artists of her time, like Kenny Rogers. With her unique voice and fabulous image, she became a total superstar. When the author says fabulous image, they're talking about the way that she dresses and the way she talks and acts. She loved wearing wigs and lots of makeup. Maybe some people thought it was too much, but children loved her look, and she did too. That makes me think of the freedom to be yourself. I hear the author saying that even though some people wanted to decide how Dolly should look and act and dress, she knew that it was a story in her own heart and brain that she got to decide. Dolly decided to do something great for the children who loved her, and she started a special library that would send books to kids in need, from her hometown all the way to the other side of the world. Wow, I'm surprised there. I noticed that this library she started, it doesn't seem to have anything to do with music. She's doing that because it changes the world. It gives kids books so that they can be happy and have the freedom to learn and have their own ideas. But Dolly didn't stop there. She built a theme park, that's a place with rides, and became the most successful woman in show business. She now owns radio stations, TV channels, and record companies too. And after 50 years on stage, little Dolly has become the most respected country performer of all time. A larger-than-life living legend with a heart as big as her dreams. So as always, when we finish a story, I have a good reader question for you. And remember that when you're answering a good reader question, it's good to have evidence from the book. So to say, I think this because the author said or because the illustrator drew. So here's your good reader question for this book. Why did Dolly start a special library and radio and TV stations? Why did she do that? Why did Dolly start a special library and radio and TV stations? Take a second to think about that. Now, if you're able, hit pause on this video and answer that question with somebody near you, trying to use evidence from the book if you can. Great. Talking about those things will definitely make you a better reader. For me, I think that Dolly started that special library and those radio and TV stations because her dream was about music, but it was also about changing the world to make life better for people. And she liked doing that through music, but she found she could do that through other ways too. And the reason I think that is because the author said on this page that she dreamed of making as many people happy as she could. And even though her music definitely made a lot of people happy, she knew that giving kids books and putting out TV and radio content that made people happy was a way she could do that too. So that's my answer to the good reader question. I'm curious to know what yours was. I have one more thing I thought we could do. It's always important when you're reading nonfiction books to think about what was the main idea, the book mostly about? So here's an opportunity for you to do a writing assignment that we call, I say, you say, idea web. Idea webs look like this. We draw one circle in the middle, and I usually like to put a light bulb inside that circle because that's where the big idea goes of the book. My best light bulb. And then I draw a bunch of lines. I'll start with just 4 lines coming out from my circle in the middle and put smaller circles at the ends of each of those lines. Now I've made my idea web. Now the way an idea web works when you're reading a nonfiction book is that in the middle circle you put the topic or the main idea of what the book was about. And then in each of the circles coming out from the main idea circle, you can put something new and true that you learned from the book about that topic. So the topic of this book was definitely about Dolly Parton. This whole book was about Dolly Parton's life. So I'm going to write her name. I'm actually going to copy it. I'm going to do some research, and I'm going to look down at the book down here and copy the letters in her name. P-A-R-T-O-N. Now, good readers will go back and read that with me. Ready, set, read. Dolly Parton. That was definitely the main idea of this book. The whole book was about her. So now I have space for 4 things that I can write that I know to be true about her. I can fill these spaces up with drawings of the things that I learned or words that tell the things that I learned. I'm going to do 1, and I hope that you'll make your own idea web and do the rest and send it back to your teacher. So for me, one thing I learned about Dolly Parton was that she got her first job on the radio when she was 10 years old. So I'm going to write, how can I say that in words? She was on the radio when she was 10. That's what I'm going to say. She is a basketball word. S-H-E spells she. Was is a basketball word. W-A-S spells was. On is a basketball word. O-N spells on. She was on the. The is a basketball word. T-H-E spells the. Radio is not a basketball word. So I'm going to have to either research it in the book or write the sounds I hear in my brain. I'm going to do that one. Radio. She was on the radio. When is a basketball word. W-H-E-N spells when. When. She I can copy from before. Was I can copy from before. 10. 1 and 0, those numerals coming together make the number 10. A good reader will read it back. Ready, set, read. She was on the radio when she was 10. So I filled in that circle. You can make your own idea web with as many circles as you want because there was lots of new and true things about Dolly Parton in that book. And fill in your own idea web and send it back to your teacher. Thanks, I hope you enjoyed the story about one of my very favorite singers. While you're working, you could even listen to some of her music. If it was me, I would start with 9 to 5. Have a great day, and I'll bring you another story tomorrow.